Hello friends, I am Mr. Dilip Kumar Pal, reader in political science, welcomes students to a very nice video, very important video, which is distinction between state and government. In the subject political science, the distinctions or difference between state and government is a very important topic. Though state and government seem to be similar, they seem to be synonymous, but actually state and government are not same. Between them, a lot of differences are found. So, today's video relates or explains the major distinctions between state and government. Okay, my students, we'll start. But before we discuss the difference between state and government, we must know a few lines about the importance of this distinction. Okay, so before we discuss what are the major distinctions or differences between state and government, we must know first of all a few lines about the importance of this distinction, because we are all human beings and it is the nature of a human being that he always tries to know about a particular thing which has some importance. So anything which will have importance about that, everybody takes interest to know about that. So before we discuss what are the difference between state and government, we must know first of all a few lines about the importance of this distinction. So what importance the distinction between state and government has? In the literature of political science, there are some concepts which seem to be same or which appear to be synonymous, but actually these concepts, these terms, those seem to be equal, but they are not same. So in the subject political science, a lot of distinctions are found, but among these distinctions, the difference between state and government is a major distinction. Though ordinary persons think that state and government are same, but actually they are not same. Even eminent persons like Thomas Hobbes of England, George Douglas Howard Cole of England, Harold Joseph Lasky of England, these thinkers also think that state and government are same. But actually state and government are not same. They are different in various spheres. So, though ordinary persons or even though great persons like Thomas Hobbes, George Douglas Howard Cole, Harold Joseph Lasky, they think that state and government are one, but state and government are not one. Between state and government, a lot of differences are observed. So, what are these differences? Number one, On the issue of broadness, the first difference between state and government is that state is a broad concept. In comparison to state, government is a narrow concept. Because state is a broad in comparison to government, because state is an association which must have four elements or ingredients like population, fixed territory, government and sovereignty. In order to form a state, four elements are necessary like population, fixed area, government and sovereignty. If out of these four elements, if a state lacks any one out of four, it cannot be considered as a state. So, in order to form a state, there must be some people, there must be a fixed territory, there must be a government, and there must be sovereignty. So, state is an association which must have four elements like population, fixed territory, government and sovereignty. But in comparison to state, government is a narrow concept because government is a part of state. Because state is an association which must have four elements like population, fixed area, government and sovereignty. So, government is a part of state. So, the first difference between state and government is that in comparison to government, state is a broad concept. Just as a human being has some organs, in the similar manner, state, if will be compared with the human being, government is one of its organ. So the first difference between state and government is that in comparison to government, state is a broad concept. In comparison to government, state is a large concept. Government is a part of state. So this is the first difference between state and government. The second difference between state and government is on the issue of permanent and temporary issue. The second difference between state and government is that state is permanent, but government is temporary. State is permanent in the sense that it continues for a long time. So long as a state will have population, a fixed area, a government and sovereignty, it continues. It continues for a long time. State is permanent. But government is temporary. Government is for a fixed period. For example, in India, a government continues for 5 years. In America, a government continues for 4 years. After 4 to 5 years, a government changes. Just like birds in the sky. For a few time, a specific bird is visible, and after some time, that specific bird will not be found anymore, or it will be vanished. So we can see a bird for a few minutes. So birds are visible in the sky for a few moments. In the next moment, we will not find. In a similar manner, government is temporary. It is observed for some specific period. After that, a new government will come. So, the second difference between state and government is that state is permanent. It will be found now and it continues for a long time. For example, India, on 15th August 1947, India has got independence. Till now it continues. But government is temporary. It is found for some time. So the second difference between state and government is that state is permanent, government is temporary. Okay, very good. The third difference between state and government is in the issue of abstractness and concreteness. State is abstract. We cannot see the state. It cannot work by itself. But government is a concrete one. We can see a government. Some persons are found in a government. And government works for the state. So the third difference between state and government is that state is an abstract concept. We cannot see the state. We cannot feel the state. It is not tangible. It cannot be touched. It cannot work by itself. But government is concrete. By taking some people, by taking some eminent persons, a government is formed. And we can see a government. We can feel a government. And government is the machine of the state. If there will be no government, state cannot work. State works through the government. Government is the engine of the state. Government prepares law. Government executes law. Government interprets the law. So the third difference between state and government is that state is abstract. We cannot see. Government is concrete. We can see, we can feel the government. So this is the third difference between state and government. The fourth difference between state and government is on the issue of composition of citizens. State and government are different on the issue of composition of citizens. A state is formed by taking all the people within it. For example, India is a country whose population is going to touch 120 crores. It is the second largest populated country in the world. So a country is formed or a state is formed by taking all the people within it. Nobody will be left. By keeping some people away from the state, a state cannot be formed. A state is formed by taking all the people within it. All the people compose a state. But a government is composed or a government is formed by taking a few persons. By taking 70 to 80 persons, or by taking 50 to 60 persons, or by taking 40 to 50 persons, a government is formed. And a government has three types of ministers. One is cabinet ministers, number two, minister of state, and number three, deputy ministers. The powerful ministers in a government are known as cabinet ministers. They are given independent departments. Just below cabinet ministers, minister of states are found. They are less powerful than the cabinet ministers. And just below the minister of state, deputy ministers are found. So in a government, ministers are found. By taking some ministers, a government is formed. And ministers are three types: cabinet ministers, minister of state, and deputy ministers. So a government is formed by taking a few persons. But a state is formed by taking all the people within it. This is the third difference between state and government. This is the fourth difference between state and government. The fifth one is issue of sovereign power. The fifth difference between state and government is that state has sovereign power. It has original power. Okay? State has sovereign power means state can take any decision. It is supreme within its territory and it is supreme also outside. It can frame its own internal policy and it can frame its own external policy. State has sovereign power. It can take any decision. But a government has no sovereign power. It derives power from the state. State has sovereign power, but a government has no sovereign power. Government gets or government derives power from the state. If state will not give power to the government, government will become inactive or government will become defunct. So state has sovereign power and government has no sovereign power. This is the another difference between state and government. The sixth difference between state and government is on the issue of grievance of people. Another important distinction between state and government is on the issue of grievance of people. Grievance of people means people may criticize a government, but never they criticize their own state or country. Never people criticize their own country. People have weakness for their country. People have love for their country. They love their country very much. Even they cannot tolerate to the insult of their country. So never they criticize their own state. But people can criticize the government. If government will have a wrong policy, if the government will have inhuman policy, people will criticize the government. Even in the next election, they may not give vote to the government. They can remove the government. They can dethrone the government. There is no question of next election. If the government within its term will follow inhuman policy, people can make revolution against the government. People can protest against the government. And people have the power to dethrone the government. So, people have never grievance for their own country. But people have grievance for their government. It means people never criticize their own state. They love their own state. But people criticize the government. If the government will follow wrong policy, if the government will follow anti-human policy or anti-people policy, people can criticize the government. It is another difference between state and government. The next difference between state and government is on the issue of uniformness. Issue of uniformness. Issue of uniformness means states are uniform. States are similar. Because a state is one which must have four elements like population, fixed area, government and sovereignty. Any association which will have these four elements, it is a state. It is acknowledged as a state. States are similar, but governments are not similar. Governments are in various forms. In India, there is democratic form of government. It means what people say, it will prevail in India. It is democracy. But in China, in North Korea, there is communist form of government. In China and North Korea, one party rule is found. What the Communist Party will say, what the Communist Party will decide, it will prevail in China and North Korea. It is a communist form of government. In China there is a Communist Party, in North Korea there is a Communist Party. What a party will decide, it will prevail. But in India, what people will decide, it will prevail. It is democratic system. In China and North Korea there is communist system. In Britain there is monarchy. In Japan there is monarchy. Monarchy means kings are found in Britain and Japan. In a monarchical form of government, what a king will decide, it will operate, it will prevail, or it will happen. So, states are one type. States are same. Because in order to form a state, 4 elements are necessary, like some people, a fixed territory, a government, and sovereignty. States are one type. States are similar. States are synonymous. But governments are different. They are different in forms. Just like in India, there is democratic form of government. In Japan and Britain, there is monarchical form of government. In China and North Korea, there is communist form of government. So states are similar. They are synonymous, but governments are different from one another. So this is another distinction between state and government. Another major differences between state and government is on the issue of territory. A state must have a fixed territory. Without a fixed territory, a state cannot be formed. Without a fixed territory, one should not dream for a state. For example, prior to 1948, in the world, Jews were found, but they were unable to form their own country. In 1948, Jews were given a permanent area and they were able to form a country known as Israel, with its capital Jerusalem. So, in order to form a state, a fixed area is necessary. A fixed territory is necessary. Not merely territory. The territory must be fixed. Without a fixed territory, a state cannot be formed. A fixed territory is must for a state. But for a government, a fixed territory is not necessary. Government requires no permanent territory. Without permanent territory, a government can be formed. A government requires no permanent area, but a state requires a permanent area. So, though state and government seem to be similar, they appear to be synonymous, but actually state and government are not same. They are different from one another. They are different from one another, and they are different from various angles. We have discussed as many as 8 angles. They are different from one another on the issue of broadness. State is a large association in comparison to government. Number 2, on the issue of permanent and temporary issue. State is permanent, government is temporary. State continues for a long time, but government is for a fixed period. Number 3, on the issue of stuckness and concreteness. Government is abstract, we cannot see the government, state is abstract, we cannot see the state, but government is concrete. Fourth one is on the issue of composition of citizens. State is formed by taking all the people within it, but its government is formed by taking a few persons. Fifth one is on the issue of sovereign power. State has sovereign power, but government lacks it. Government derives power from the state. Then the issue of grievance. People may have grievance against the government, but never they have grievance against the state. On the issue of uniformness. All the states are uniform, all the states are similar, but governments are not similar. They are different forms. They are different from one another. Another one is on the issue of territory. A state needs a permanent area. State needs a permanent territory. Without permanent territory, a state never be formed. But government requires no fixed territory. So these are the major distinctions between state and government. So in this video, I think my students are very much clear the 8 major distinctions between state and government. I think this video will be very useful for students. You should not watch this video only for the name sake. You should watch this video attentively so that you will be benefited. Thank you to my students. Smile please. Again you will be here. We will be here in the next video. Till now, thank you to all. Goodbye.